The thickness of the paintwork is small, and the paintwork cannot boast of good resistance to mechanical damage. The edges of the hood and roof suffer the most. On pre-styling cars, seals installed on the frill and in doorways wipe the paint on the inside of the hood to the metal. On the trunk lid, the paint is wiped off by the license plate trim. The problem is solved by applying an armored film at the points of contact with the sealant. On restyled versions, damage to the paintwork may be present at the points of contact of the rear bumper and fenders with the marker lights. Some owners have encountered such a nuisance as paint swelling at the bottom of the inside of the doors. But there are no special comments on the quality of the metal and its corrosion resistance. The only place where traces of corrosion can be found is the trunk lid, and rust streaks can also appear in the area of the exterior mirrors, the metal frame rusts. Power units on the pre-styling Ford Kuga 2, a 1.6 EcoBoost gasoline turbo engine, 150 and 182 HP, aspirated 2.5, 150 HP, and diesel 2.0 TDCi of various degrees of formation, 140 and 163 HP, were installed. After the modernization of the car in 2016, the 1.6-liter gasoline engine was replaced by a 1.5-liter EcoBoost turbo engine, 150 and 182 HP. The EcoBoost series internal combustion engines are based on the Duratic 1.6T VCT engine, but their reliability turned out to be noticeably lower than that of the ancestor. The main disadvantage of turbo engines is the high heat load and the tendency to overheat. At the beginning of production, this problem was so common that the manufacturer even had to carry out a recall campaign for cars manufactured from May 2012 to December 2014. Most often, local overheating of the aluminum cylinder block occurred, which ended with a breakdown of the gaskets and the appearance of cracks in the cylinder head. Later, the manufacturer corrected the situation a little by upgrading the ECU firmware and cooling system. However, this did not completely solve the problem, since the pump uses a not very successful electromechanical clutch, the failure of which inevitably leads to overheating. Often, owners of Ford Kuga 2 with EcoBoost engines complain about the presence of detonation, but few people know about the existence of a problem called LSPI, premature ignition in the cylinder, the presence of which can lead to the destruction of the pistons. To eliminate the disease requires the use of special oils. Another disadvantage is the tendency to coke valves, the unreliability of the turbine solenoid valve, and the capriciousness of the direct injection system. Does not like bad fuel. The timing drive uses a belt that needs to be updated every 90,000 kilometers. At the same time, it is necessary to adjust the valves since there are no hydraulic compensators here. The 2.5-liter aspirated YTMA is an almost complete copy of the MZR L5E engine developed by the Japanese company Mazda. This unit is quite reliable and works without problems on 90-second gasoline. Among the shortcomings, one can only single out a tendency to leaks of the heat exchanger, pan and valve cover, a low resource of attachments, a throttle valve, stick, and a phase regulator. Closer to 100,000 kilometers, it starts to knock. A reliable chain is used in the timing drive, which does not need to be replaced from 200 to 250,000 kilometers. In the cooling system, the exhaust pipes require attention. They corrode if the antifreeze is not changed for a long time. The resource of the internal combustion engine with proper maintenance will be about 450,000 kilometers. Diesel versions of the Ford Kuga 2 are equipped with a UFMA engine borrowed from the Mondeo 4. This engine has a good margin of safety, but like other diesel ICE, it painfully endures work on domestic diesel fuel. Nozzles, high-pressure fuel pumps, and the USR valves serve less than usual. Another disadvantage of this unit is the short service life of the right engine mount, generator, thermostat, and crankshaft rear oil seal. They serve about 100,000 kilometers. It is not uncommon for owners to note difficulties with starting an internal combustion engine in the cold season. Most often, the disease is caused by burning of the fuel filter heating contacts located in the filter cover. On a run of more than 200,000 kilometers, the turbine control valve can mope, but the turbocharger itself, as a rule, does not require attention until 300,000 kilometers. If you rarely service the engine and pour low-quality oil into it, there is a risk of turning the crankshaft liners. The gas distribution mechanism has a combined drive with a tooth belt and a chain that combines the camshafts. The belt needs to be replaced every 90,000 kilometers, but the chain does not require attention for 200 to 250,000 kilometers. Transmission Ford Kuga 2. Buyers can choose from 3 types of gearboxes: 6-speed manual, classic 6F35 automatic, and power shift robot with Getride brand wet clutch. The mechanics are reliable, and during operation it only needs to replace the clutch and drive seals. There are no particular complaints about the reliability of the automatic transmission. Of the minuses, it is worth highlighting the presence of shocks and jerks when switching. Most often they appear when switching from second to third and turning on reverse gear. The problem is solved by flashing the ECU unit and replacing the gearbox lubricant. With rare maintenance closer to 150,000 kilometers, a replacement of the torque converter and clutches is required. After 200,000 kilometers, rings, bushings, brake bands, and solenoids wear out, and the valve body may also need to be cleaned. If the oil has rarely changed during operation, prolonged loads on the gearbox should be avoided, as this is fraught with overheating and a decrease in the resource of gearbox parts. But the 6-speed Robot 6 DCT 450 makes itself felt after 100,000 kilometers. The first, as a rule, the clutch kit fails, in which dampers sag and plastic inserts, retainers, fall apart. If the clutch is not replaced in a timely manner, the destruction products enter the valve body and solenoids, after which the operation of the box is disrupted, and its parts wear out quickly. Also, a malfunction of the part leads to oscillations and wear of the oil seal located behind the clutch block, flowing. If you do not live up to critical clutch wear, fatal breakdowns can be avoided, but repairs will not be cheap in any case. A worn part makes itself felt by jerking at the beginning of the movement. Another weakness is the electronic transmission control board. 4-wheel drive, all-wheel drive Ford Kuga 2 uses the ATC, active torque coupling, system with an interaxle clutch. The weak point of the drive is the oil seal of the right drive shaft, which begins to leak lubricant after 50 to 100,000 kilometers. On the same run, oil streaks can also be found on the transfer case shank. The gland is replaced as an assembly with a flange. If you do not abuse the presence of all-wheel drive up to 200,000 kilometers, there are no problems with the clutch, as usual. To check the condition of the clutch, it is necessary to turn the wheels completely out and start moving. If the rear axle is connected with a blow, an expensive clutch repair is just around the corner. It is worth noting that in the event of a clutch malfunction, errors do not appear on the instrument panel. Reliability of the suspension, steering, and brakes. Ford Kuga 2 both axles use independent suspension with MacPherson struts in front and a multi-link design in the rear. Unlike its predecessor, Ford Kuga 2 has become more comfortable and, at the same time, has not lost its former handling. Despite the solid dimensions and considerable weight of the crossover, the resource of most chassis elements is quite high. Even the bushings and stabilizer struts do not have to be changed often, every 60,000–80,000 kilometers. The first significant suspension repair has to be done closer to 120,000 kilometers. By this time, the silent blocks of the rear levers are destroyed, and their fastening by this time is thoroughly sour. Support bearings serve about the same amount, which make themselves felt crunchy when turning the steering wheel. Silent blocks of the front levers, ball bearings, and shock absorbers can last up to 150,000 kilometers. But the service life of wheel bearings is highly dependent on the size of the wheels, 140,000 kilometers. It is worth noting that the rear bearings in the original are assembled with the hub. In steering, the weak link is the electromechanical rack. It often starts to tap unpleasantly at a relatively low mileage after 50,000 kilometers. When contacting a dealer, you should not expect a free replacement part, as they do not consider this defect a malfunction. Fortunately, the rail can be restored, about $200–300 USD. Only repairs are usually enough for 40–60,000 kilometers. Another weak point is considered to be the anthers of the steering rods. They are quite rigid and have an unsuccessful bend, due to which, when the wheels are turned, they can cling to the hinges. A characteristic click is heard, and wear out more intensively. If the damaged anther is not replaced in a timely manner, the resource of the rods is significantly reduced. Steering tips withstand 100 to 150,000 kilometers. But the brakes do not cause any particular problems. Salon and electrical equipment. The interior design of the Ford Kuga 2 and the quality of finishing materials do not raise any special questions. There are no significant comments on the wear resistance of materials. Among the shortcomings here, only rather weak sound insulation and poor fitting of parts on a Russian-assembled car can be distinguished. Another disadvantage is the not very high-quality foam base of the front seat cushions. Under heavy riders, it quickly rubs against the springs and sags. During the restoration process, it is recommended to install a polyurethane backing that will protect the foam rubber from the frame springs. But the interior equipment of the car cannot be called problem-free. At the start of sales, the manufacturer even had to carry out several revocable companies. The first was caused by the use of a defective ignition switch in cars with a 2.5-liter engine, can lock the steering wheel on the go, produced from October 2013 to December 2015. The second company affected all cars produced from 2016 to mid-2017. Defective airbags manufactured by Takata were replaced. The knee and side airbag of the front passenger were replaced. Quite often, owners complain about malfunctions in the headlight control unit, incomprehensible behavior of the radio, and wheezing from the speaker when the audio system is activated, fixed by updating the firmware of the sync system. When developing the Ford Kuga 2, the manufacturer tried to eliminate the shortcomings that were characteristic of the previous generation of the model. The car received a better assembly. It became more spacious, more comfortable, and more economical, but nevertheless, in many respects, as before, it loses to competitors. It is difficult to judge reliability, since everything depends on the selected units and the quality of their service. If you are the owner of this car model, please describe the problems that you had to face during the operation of the car. Perhaps it is your review that will help readers of our site when choosing a car.